Welcome to Legacy Conversations, a channel where we preserve military memories and history.
I've been laughing since yesterday. I've had a smile on my face because we've recorded something which I found very, very amusing. And I've decided to share it with you here after I stop speaking here, which will only be in a few minutes. Basically, guys, what I want to tell you is a couple of things. In the first place, YouTube tells me that from now on, if there's a video out on Legacy, whether we speak Afrikaans or whether we speak Army or whether we speak Air Force or Navy or even Pommy, or we try to, then it can be translated in virtually any language there is. So I hope that would make it easier for the foreigners who's watching here, the Uitlanders, and all of you, of course, are welcome. That's the first thing. It's a major story, and I don't know when YouTube's going to roll it out, but it's going to do it. Then secondly, we have a couple of series which are coming out in the next month or two, running up from now, from the end of October upwards to after Christmas. The first one, which is of interest to us, is we found the videos which was made in 1986 of the entire parachute course. In other words, from the day you arrive, of your 14-day PT selection, until the hanger phase, until your first jump. One of the 7 Medical Battalion doctors, Andre Roux, he gave it to me. And so we made the entire series on that. It's very, very interesting because we had Dr. Brigadier General retired McGill Alexander, the paratrooper general. He actually told us, he says in the first video, and he gave us a little bit of a background on the parachute battalion. I just want to say congratulations to General McGill as well, since he's married again at a ripe old age in his 80s. And we're very happy for the man and wish the bride and the bridegroom, of course, all the best where he is. Also in that very first video, there's Dr. Stefan Rawlings. He talked about 7 Medical Battalion. And then we have Dr. Andre Roux, who just explained where his videos come from, because it's his course in 86, which we have everything about. And then we got an instructor, Lieutenant Colonel Frans van Tibberg, who actually explained to us everything there is to know about the parachute course. Very, very fascinating, and we broke it up into 4 different parts. The first one is this intro I'm talking about, which is about an hour long. Then we have a 14-day course, which is, I think it will bring tears to many people to see that. And then we also discovered some videos that they say we can use of 1989, the 3-day course. Now, there's a huge fight between the paratroopers on which one, of course, is now the toughest. And the 14-day people will all agree it's the 14 days, and 3-day and 2-night guys will say, well, it's actually them. Well, we have the answer, because in that video, the instructor in both of them, Colonel Frans van Tibberg, actually gives an opinion backed up by statistics on which course actually failed the most people. And it's not what you think it is. And then we have a 4th video in that series, and they're coming out about 2 weeks apart. So you have to subscribe and we'll go on the Telegram channel where it will be announced as they come out. It's the only way you're going to know about it. I don't have your email address. I can't email you directly. But anyway, in the 4th one is where they actually do the hanger phase and then the first jump, again in 1986. It's unique. It still survived. We did the best we could with the sound, of course, and the quality of the videos. But it's really unique. It's totally unique. So I'm looking forward to bringing that to you. Then the second thing, which is going to be in between all of us, all of the paratroopers, is last year when I was in South Africa, we made the entire series on the RATL. Yeah, we made a series on the RATL, 3 of them, 3 videos. really, really good. And we spoke to the uncle of Oratel, which is Brigadier General retired, Tony Savides. Many of you will know him. He was closely involved with Oratel, and he actually did a lot. I mean, he showed us Oratel standing there at Saxon Wood. I know we had a video of that one before, but this one is technical. Very, very technical. And I think you will enjoy that. And we also started right in the beginning with the first episode. We looked at where Oratel actually comes from. By the way, it was never designed for the bush war. It was designed for conventional use of the tanks with armor proper. And then it was also designed before Op Savannah, by the way. So it's very interesting this. And then on the third episode, we go and visit some Ratels, and we meet the very same Ratel. It still exists. It's in our chaplain Andre Olivier in his company. We have a Ratel standing around there, which is the very, very same one which General Viljoen, Stokstreep, as you people know him, where General Viljoen got blown up in. There you go. I stood there and I actually touched the Ratel, and it was fantastic. And then the third series, which I want to bring to your attention, which is also going to be in between all of us now, is the G5, the G5, and the G6, and the Vis Arend, and the Valkyrie. So there we had 32 Battalion Support Group Colonel Perry Franken, as well as Major General, retired, all of his officers, of course, Koos Bom Lapsher. And these are artillerists. And they were very good. And they were telling us how the G5 came into being. They go through the G4 and the other guns as well. Apparently, there's no such thing as a howitzer, it's a gun. They talk about the G6, which interesting things coming out of the G6 as well. Gerald Bull, you know, we got assassinated by someone, we won't say who. We all know who, but we won't say. And then they also started talking about the multiple rocket launch systems. You know, the Valkyrie and the Vis Arend and those things. In other words, the South African versions of the Stolen Oral. And yeah, Katushka, I think they call it. So it's a fantastic amount of videos coming out. There's a lot of others as well. And with the third video, which we made of the parachute battalion, becoming a paratrooper, we looked at the 1989 selection. And there was one chap, I feel very sorry for him, but I'm the only one, who had blisters on his feet. You know what's going to happen now. You know, the medics arrived and they started treating this blister. And I have to say to you, I don't know if a young man made it, but he wasn't crying or roaring or was trying to shoot somebody like I would have done. You all know when they put that meteorolite or whatever they call it into you, it burns like seven devils. And from that, I asked 7 Medical Battalion, can you just give us a bit of a background on this as well? Because, you know, we make these videos, guys, we make it with an eye on the future. It's not for us so much. I mean, we've been there, so we know. But there might be youngsters, you know, your grandchildren, perhaps your children, their children, and they're going to look at these videos one day and they will wonder, what the hell are we talking about? Why are we doing that? Why are we treating a wound like that? And so they nominated Dr. Johan Prince of 7 Med to explain to us that particular treatment. And that is a video I want to attach you here. It is quite short, only about 15 minutes out of video free of 3-day selection. I wanted to take a little bit of videos from the other videos as well, but you know, in this video is going to be 40-50 minutes and no one's going to watch it. So that's it. Gentlemen, what you're about to see is somebody who's got a blister on his feet, or one foot, but mostly it was both feet. And there were several ways of treating these blisters. And I've seen in my time in the police counterinsurgency units that you would get your two biggest constables you have, by which I don't mean fat, but it would have helped if I had a bit of weight of them. And they would basically then sit down on this fellow while you start treating that blister. I've heard some lads using the most foul language you can imagine in about 5 different dialects of Afrikaans, English, Zulu, Xhosa, and quite a few other languages I didn't even recognize. But we have Dr. Johan Prims, also from 7 Medical Battalion Group. He's going to explain to us what exactly we're treating, how we're treating it.
Net so lekker met nossietjie. Nee, maar ek het dat is toch. Kom zo.
Techniek go. Dit vir die pas in die onder. Dit om die hamstringkies weer lekker los te maak. Weet jy waarvan lim so werk? Kurwa. Cycle is nooit. Cycle is nooit so. Jy moet maar jy tyd pas die pas. Jy tyd pas. Let's go. Let's go.
Goeie says hier fase aansienkie. Hy is nog steeds daar kan nie daarvan as nog steeds op die kant. Hier.
The reasons for the methylate, well, the main reason is that you cannot allow your able-bodied man to be withdrawn from training just because he has a blister on his foot. He needs to continue with training. He needs to then obviously be able to be deployed, but he needs his feet to do so. So the methylate, yes, that burned like a mother. It felt like you get an amputation. And in South Africa, we have a word that starts with a P that a lot of guys used when they got this injection. The basic medical background as to why it was done. Firstly, the Omniboot is not a very a sterile place or a place without germs. So firstly, you need to sterilize your wound, which sometimes would be extensive on the foot, either on the ball of your foot or the heel. Then secondly, also you need to have it dry because it needs to heal. And obviously, thirdly, you need to have the blister not repeat. So that's what they did. So they basically, the medic or even your corporal, whomever, would take a few milliliters of methylate into the syringe, then put the needle into the blister, aspirate the content of the blister, make it mix with the methylate, and then yippee-ki-yay, put it back in. And that's when the swearing and the writhing and the sweating and everything would start with the pain. But literally, it feels like you get an amputation. The whole, if you haven't experienced it before, you wouldn't know. Let's just put it that way. So that's why they did. Nowadays, obviously, they follow more humane, for the lack of a better word, principles where they would aspirate it or just dress it with vitamin E oil and make sure that it's sterile. But I would suspect that the person that it happens to then would have to withdraw from training until such time as that the wound is healed or that the blister is healed. Other ways to prevent blisters, obviously you had to prevent them. So some guys used methylate or methylated spirits. They rub their feet with methylated spirits with the reasoning being is that it hardens your foot. I think that's an urban legend, but people did that. Other people used dubbin that we used in the old days to rub your rugby balls in to prevent it from the leather from perishing. And then a lot of guys wore stockings, nylon stockings that formed a few layers within your boot. Then to further prevent your blisters is that you had to have your boot conform to your foot. So for that, lukewarm water would have been used. Pour it into the boot. Make sure that the boot then starts sweating the water out. Then you can throw the water, or you empty your boot, and then you can wear that wet boot with your nylon stockings, your army issue socks, and then your boot nice and tight. And that helped the boot take the form of your foot over time. But it was also very, very weird. So in the beginning, when you used to do that for your foot to get used to your boot, and your boot take the shape of your foot, your boots obviously would attract more dust because it's wet. Plus it was dirty, it didn't shine. And then you would get an opfok, and you would have to be, you were punished because your boots were dirty. So those were interesting times. Basically that, and then on patrol and fast bait and all those things where obviously blisters were rife and sometimes methylate was not readily available, and then obviously the blisters would go open. Some guys would urinate on the blisters. With the basic reasoning behind that is basically the same as methylate. It sort of sterilizes the open blister because of the urea. I mean, a young, healthy man is not supposed to have infected urine. Urine in a 19-20 recruit should also always be sterile. So it's sterile, it's got some urea in that helps with the drying out. I don't know really if there's any other medical reason for it, but that's what the guys did. And then obviously plaster around it. We didn't have these fancy plasters that are around today. So basically what we used to do is after the whole methylate urinating on your blister, you would just put some elastoplast across it, back into the boot, and off you go. The corporals were very, where I was, were very persistent on foot and foot care. And they drilled it into us. So every day, every second day, specifically during basics and later leader group, you would have a foot inspection. So they would have a look at your feet. And obviously, if you had blisters, you would get the methylate treatment. So whether that was looking after your well-being or for their own sadistic pleasure, I wouldn't know. I think it's a matter of both. So yeah, so as I said, you couldn't have the guys, everybody with blisters. If everybody that had a blister in the army would have to stop training, I mean, more than half of the guys wouldn't finish their training. But because of methylate, more than half did, or basically all of them did. At the moment, as I said, today it's frowned upon. The mer in methylate comes from mercury, which is a heavy metal, and that today not used much because everybody is going crazy about heavy metal poisoning and but look, it worked. I think you can still get methylate off the shelf in our pharmacies in South Africa. I don't know worldwide, but you can. Mercurochrome also, and again, the mer is for mercury, which is used as a sterilizer, and obviously, as I said, to harden the skin. And that's basically the whole thing behind methylate, mercurochrome. As I said, mercurochrome was not used much. I think the reason why mercurochrome, although it might have had the same effect, didn't have the effect of pain. So again, for the sadistic pleasure of whomever administered this vile poison to your foot, they used methylate because they'd burnt Jesus out of you. It really... And here's the interesting thing. It goes in and you look at it, one in wonderment, and for a split second, it doesn't burn. And for that split second, you wonder why these other guys were jumping up and down and shouting and screaming. And the next moment it hits you out of the blue. It feels like somebody's taken an axe to your ankle. And the whole thing feels as if it's going to fall off. And then you start screaming as well. And that wonderment as to why the guys did scream is not a surprise anymore. Now you know. And that, course, basically is the reason for why things were done. I don't know of any other reasons. Obviously, look, if the blisters and everything became infected, but they didn't because of the methylate. But if they did get infected and the guy's skin was coming off all over, he was then withdrawn from training, treated medically with dressings. I think nowadays they use combination of antiseptic creams and later on vitamin E cream in the hope that the skin would regenerate faster. Obviously, the guys were not without heart. If the foot was to such an extent that he couldn't continue training, he was withdrawn from training. But the rest of us carried on. And Mercury be damned, we're still here without what I can think of heavy metal poisoning. So, yeah. So, just in short, it was done. I think it still is done for the training to continue. It is frowned upon from medical circles, but being the guys in uniform, I mean, they have a goal, and sometimes it necessitates rough measures and inventions like the methylate. And everybody's blisters healed that I know of. We never had a guy that got taken off for blisters because he got the methylate and then just carried on. Fuzzbait. Just fuzzbait and carry on. Okay, so yeah, obviously there was violence when your foot is being amputated or feels like it. So some medics were grabbed by the brown shirt. Some medics, I think, were punished with a fist. But I think they saw it as basically fair retribution for what they've just done to whomever got that. And as far as I know, and I cannot think of a mechanism by which that would occur, but as far as I know, nobody died from the administration because it's topical. It doesn't get absorbed into the system. I mean, it's just the epidermis that sloughs, and between the dermis and the epidermis, you get the water. But there where the skin sloughs, that's where all the nerve ends sit, anxiously awaiting the feeling of methylate on them. So yeah, so no, I don't think anybody died because of this administration, but I think a few medics did get clobbered, so to speak, because it's really it's a pain that I cannot describe to anybody that hasn't experienced it himself or herself. Yeah, so, but don't try this at home. Don't go walk around getting blister and try and put it just to feel it. Just take my word for it and take anybody else's word who had that administered to them. Take our words for it. It is fucking sore. It really, it's like being stung by 1,000 blue bottles whilst swimming in the ocean. But 1,000 at once was like a man of war, those big jellyfish getting hold of you and just shocking the shit out of you. So basically, that's what it's like. Well, the biggest blister that I've seen was the whole 4 foot, the ball of the guy's foot was a blister. I don't know how he got to do that. Maybe there was some sand or whatever in his or on his foot, between the foot and the sock, or maybe in the boot itself. But that was the whole sole, and it wasn't just a water blister. It was blood. Was the blood blister. He had a few choice words to say, and he got a few days off, but eventually also finished training. In the beginning, it was thought to give yourself a blister so that you can jippo and not continue with the training. That thought went out the window very, very fast after the first administration of Thailand. So that might have been another reason why they did that, is to discourage the guys from hurting themselves. When we did the training, you were charged with hurting yourself. If you hurt yourself, you were charged, and you could go to the detention barracks for doing so because you were seen as state property. And if you hurt yourself, it's destruction of state property for some weird and convoluted reason. And some guys actually did get charged and then severely punished for damaging of state property. But yeah, the biggest blister I see was the whole of basically the ball of his foot was one big blood blister. He nearly passed out when they gave him the treatment. He had a few days off, but then lo and behold, he was back and carried on without any long-term effects.
Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and ring the bell to receive notifications.